Yo, what's going on, guys? I've recently been noticing more and more frustrations with gameplay in Pirate 101. Some believe having OP things is good and difficult enemies are needed in the game, and then others are getting increasingly annoyed at the unenjoyable, unbalanced game state. Both have valid arguments for their position, so it's a weird topic to address. I recently ran a poll asking if players were interested in advanced combat like in Wizard 101, and most people don't want that. Okay, fair. Then I ran a second poll asking about a challenge mode system similar to Wizard 101, and this time a majority of players are interested. And to me, I think challenge modes are a great middle ground to this power imbalance problem. First, we need to understand what challenge modes are. In Wizard 101, challenge modes are a way to bolster up significant fights you encounter throughout the game. They are completely optional, but they reward you with better drop rates for unique gear, treasure cards, reagents, and even spell elements. However, you, as the player, are also restricted. In Wizard 101, you can't access your inventory, you can't use potions, and you can't use enchants. These are just a couple examples, putting a higher emphasis on correct decision making and adaptation. For Pirate 101, these challenge modes can exist throughout the story with more cheats and OP things to enemies, such as Overwatch 5 or Too Much Powder, while prohibiting these to the players. Stormbringer recently quested through Polaris on a Buccaneer with restrictions such as vendor gear only, no pet, and then he streamed it on the official Pirate 101 Discord. Now, he did it as a fun challenge for himself to experience, but he also did it to showcase how fights are being designed in a way for you to strategize. Some examples include hiding behind terrain and knowing the enemy's line of sight, are a few examples of Pirate 101 fundamentals he wants to cement into the game. Although I am fully in support of this, the problem is that players won't adapt and will continuously get frustrated if they can't play their bread and butter style. I partially blame Miracle Mitch, as well as giving OP things to players such as Old Scratch and Rank 5 Epics, as reasons as why people think this way. But also, people just don't want to deal with hard fights for mainline content. This problem is noticed heavily in Wizard 101 with Novus, Wallaroo, and especially Selenopolis. Yeah, I love having to look up a guide for each individual boss. That was great in Selenopolis. Please do it again, KI. I am a firm believer that difficult content should always be optional. People play Pirate for different reasons, and catering to each is ideal. Some players, they don't want to redo a fight 5 times just to continue the story. I'll give an example. In the Polaris update, there's one fight where these privateer bears sit back and stack shields onto each other, as well as have ways to halt your damage onto them. You have 10 turns to win the fight. One of the intended strategies for this fight is to use a power such as Purge Magic to remove all of the shields at once and then pounce onto the enemy. Putting in Old Scratch first and then 2 chainers after is an example of executing this strategy correctly. I absolutely love this fight design, but there's a couple of problems. The first is that if you are like me and have the best in slot gear, you can still cheese your way through this entire fight. The second is that players who don't know about this intended strategy and don't have the best in slot gear will get frustrated when they can't brute force their way through. I understand when people want to say skill issue, and although I don't necessarily disagree, again, some people just want to continue with the story. I think making this individual fight the challenge mode version and making an easier alternative can fix both problems. So how should challenge mode work? For enemies, they should have any combination of bolstered stats, higher health, unique cheats, and access to overtuned powers and epics such as Overwatch 5, Black Fog, and Tempest of Torpedoes, to name a couple. For players, on the other hand, they get heavy restrictions. Some of these can include, but are not limited to, no Mojo Flows, no Rank 5 Epics, and no El Toro Battle Zeal and Summon. This would force players to have to identify win conditions, work as a team, and make smart decisions to win fights. That's the whole point of a game like Pirate 101. There's no cheesy auto wins available. And because this is all optional content, the people who are not interested in this convoluted mess and they just want to play with their overpowered stuff, they can simply ignore it. In regards to the rewards for doing the challenge mode, the chases, which are the uniques that the challenge modes can give, they have higher drop rates than the normal versions. It can drop higher tiered snacks. It can grant a lot of gold, and even it can grant script if we find ways to revive the script market. Side tangent, I think having a companion or items to promote companions be purchasable for a huge amount of script is a great idea. Like, imagine being able to get this guy for script. Come on, please KI do this. I think this also fixes another problem in Pirate, which is PvP. The problem is that ranked PvP has very few restrictions, leading to a cheesy, unenjoyable experience. So for the people who are interested in PvP, they have to go into third-party discords and create rule sets to make PvP more honest. The problem with this is that there are so many rules that exist to keep PvP fair and balanced. Having to read an essay just to understand the rules is not intriguing to most players. So I think having the challenge mode restrictions to players also be applied to ranked PvP will do wonders in encouraging players to try it out once more. I understand there's people who are against PvP because of the community, but besides a few rotten apples that exist, most of the PvP community are not bad people. I think PvP needs to be in a healthy state for both Wizard and Pirate. It's supposed to be the endgame content. However, at the end of the day, I'm curious about your guys' opinions as well. Do you think it'd be good, or am I just off my rocker again? Besides that, I'll see you all later.